Hello guys and welcome to the latest episode of the MSC Performance Podcast with me, Mark Wilson, and Mr. Jaswant Shergill. How are we, Jas? Good man. It's very good to see you again. It's been a while since we did obviously our first podcast, which I must say has got to go down as probably the most popular podcast we've ever done. It was an absolute mega podcast. We certainly did. So everyone knows who Jas is, but I'll give you the rundown just in case you've not been on the planet for 10 years and you don't know who he is. In fact, introduce yourself, Jas. You've been a member of MSC obviously for a long time now.
Yeah.
Give the guys a bit of a sort of recap of your achievements.
Weightlifter representing MSC Performance. I've been lifting for 17 years now, which always surprises people. Every time, I tell people, they'll always get a funny reaction. I know that's why it surprises people. Yeah, but despite how I look, I'm 29 years old. But I've been lifting since I was 12 years old. 17 years of competing. Training-wise, I've been training since I could walk, I think. But 12 was that's when I had my first competition. So 17 years of competitive weightlifting. In that time, I've won the English Championships a few times, the British Championships a few times, and I'm competing in my second Commonwealth Games in about 5 weeks' time.
Amazing. The first question I want to ask is, how's the preparation for the Commonwealth Games going? But whilst you've just kind of given us that little recap of your weightlifting career, I have to ask, when you were 12 years old, when you did your first competition, what did you weigh?
Yeah.
And what were your numbers? What did you weigh?
I weighed 30 kilograms.
30?
Yeah, I weighed 30 kilograms. I snatched 25 kilograms. 35. Yeah. So.
All the body weight.
Yeah,
it's actually pretty good when you put the body weight into it.
Yeah, but a lot stronger now, but about the same weight. Yeah.
How did you get into weightlifting? We talked about this in the first podcast, obviously that was a long time ago. What kind of got you into the sport?
My dad was really into strength sports, so he tried everything. He did weightlifting for a little bit, general bodybuilding type of training, but he was just really into strength sports, and it's something he wanted to cultivate. Like me and my brothers and sisters. So just growing up, I always had that role model that I was always influenced by, someone who really valued being strong, someone who really valued physical education. And I literally since I could walk, I was always messing about tying kettlebells and doing body weight stuff.
Yeah.
And then I think I must have been about, I reckon 10 or 11 when I actually started learning how to lift weights. I've still got my first bar.
Really?
I'll show you a picture of it after this. It's really bent, and I've got the nail varnish marks my dad painted on for my grip. And it's all still there. So I must have been training on that bar when I was 10, 11 years old. Yeah. So it was just my dad's influence. Great I had.
Obviously, he was quite into different strength sports. Did you ever try any different things, or was it was weightlifting the one that you remember? You sort of got hold of the bar, you started doing some of that stuff, and that was it. Was he into strongman stuff? Was he into powerlifting or anything else, or was it mainly weightlifting?
My dad was into. I was a general strength training. But I think the thing strong. Yeah, but I think the thing he was most passionate about as a sport was weightlifting. Yeah. I think he had the idea that he wanted to put one of his kids into the sport of weightlifting. That was the thing that he was most passionate about.
Yeah.
He spent most of his time doing general strength training, but that was very passionate. But that's what he wanted to. To be a weightlifter, and I always had that. I was never doing it, even when I was that young. It was always with the goal of being competitive, and it was always with the goal of being disciplined and serious about it, even from that young age. So I always had that vision and that discipline.
Weightlifting is in terms of, if you look at it, to the average person, it might just look like you're away from the floor, putting out your head. But anyone who knows anything about weightlifting knows how technical the sport is, and the discipline's a massive factor in it, isn't it? In terms of the discipline to be consistent, to work on the weaknesses, to get the positioning right, to do the drills. is is a massive part of it. It's always come quite naturally to you because of the love of the sport and because you want to take it seriously from a young age.
It's something that has always been there for me, even when I was young. And again, it's probably my dad's influence, but it's something that I've also just been very conscious that it's important to develop. I think especially it's really important for athletes, especially weightlifters in the UK who have to like work alongside training. Because when you finish work, you're not always going to feel like training. I probably feel like training probably 1 or 2 days a week.
Especially
exactly. So if I just trained when I felt like, I'd probably train once or twice a week. But if I just train when I felt like it, so it's that discipline to kind of
get the job done.
Exactly, like just detach yourself from how you're feeling. Because when I finish work, I don't want to train, but when I get in the gym, I'm always glad that I did. I've never ever regretted coming to the gym, regardless of how I felt beforehand. So it's always just kind of like dismissing that short-term feeling of not feeling like training, and overriding that with like your long-term goals.
Sure.
I think that's where an example of how discipline like manifests in.
I think that's really key, like in terms of the general sort of trainers who want to live for a bit of fun or to get in better shape, is not always going to feel like people say to me like, how are you so motivated, how are you so like on it all the time. It's like I can't say that I'm absolutely buzzing for every session, like obviously I am a lot of the time, but sometimes I'm not at all. But similar to yourself, I've never walked away from a session thinking, oh, I wish I didn't bother, that was a waste of time. You always, it's always progress, it's always stimulus, there's always adaptation, it's always taking like some learnings from it. Even the bad sessions that maybe don't go quite so well, especially with Olympic lifting, obviously we can have sessions where you're missing lifts and things like that, but you can still take away the learnings from it and and develop. So like always encourage people of like try and get that mindset of like, right, it's part of your routine, get it done, because when you walk away from the gym, you're never going to be disappointed that you turned up and got it done.
I don't think I've had one session.
No, never.
In like 20 years of weightlifting, I think I really shouldn't have come into it.
Exactly. So it's interesting. That's kind of good to have in the back of your mind. But can't be bothered all the time. Because right, if I can just get through it. So the big Commonwealth Games. How's the preparation going?
It's going really well. I have a very specific training goals that I wanted to accomplish. So for me, there was technical elements I wanted to improve. But the majority of my focus is on strength work. So I've made some significant improvements in both of those areas. I had a training camp that finished yesterday, and we did some strength retesting, and it showed that I've made significant improvements in those areas. We did some force plate stuff, some vertical jump testing, like a propulsive force. I made good progress there. So now it's nice to have that affirmation.
Also
At the same time, though, it's been very hard to earn this block. This is like my third training cycle since coming back from injury, and the first two training cycles, everything kind of not getting easy, but everything felt like it fell into place. Everything felt like it was all going the right way. It was all going to plan. But this block's been different. Like I've made good progress, but it's been very hard. There's been a lot of challenges that I've had to like overcome and adapt my training because of. But I feel like I've been really good in that regard, and that's why I've still been able to make good progress in spite of those challenges.
Go well, moving in the right direction. Well, that's a nice feeling to know that the strength's up, stronger than you've ever been. The test, everything is going in the right direction. So happy days, have you got specific goals for this competition? Obviously, it's not the first time you've obviously done the Commonwealth Games, but is there a specific goal, or is that sort of something you're keeping yourself? Or?
I some vague numbers in mind, but I find the longer I do weightlifting for, the less specific my goals become. I think what motivates me is just getting stronger and just seeing how good I can get. So that's been my focus in training. Like, so for instance, I had about 10, 11 weeks after the trials. So my goal was just to see how good could I get in 10 or 11 weeks. And when it comes to competition time, it's just about, then the goal becomes, okay, now I'm going to express the improvements that I've made.
Yeah, just execute on the day.
Yeah. So that's something, I wouldn't say it's a very common approach, but the longer I've been looking for, the less I start to define success by like a number or a result or a title. And it's more just about my personal journey of making improvements in my technique, making improvements in my character, my mentality, and just being stronger. And that's kind of where my focus is. So it's more about, how strong can I get? How good can I get? And when it comes to competition, it's just about how much of that can I express. So my goal for right now is just to see how good I can get. And my goal for the competition is just feel as if I've shown who I am and to feel as if I've done my training justice.
Amazing. That's a brilliant approach. Like you say, maybe not a massively common one, because I think a lot of people, not just in weightlifting, but when they're retesting in the gym or they're going to play, a different sport or anything, they've got, a specific, number they have to hit, or they have to win a particular game or something like that. I think that's a really interesting approach of, I'm just trying to better myself from who I was yesterday, essentially. Not comparing myself against anyone else. Yeah. Especially in a sport like weightlifting, when people are, it is the numbers, isn't it's down to the numbers you're lifting on the day. It must be easy to get yourself caught up on like what's this person doing, what's that person lifting. But at the same time, ultimately, you can only focus on yourself, can't you?
100%.
You can't control what that other person's gonna lift.
Yeah. I did an interview a couple of weeks ago, and they asked me about my goals for the Commonwealth Games, and I gave a similar answer. I could tell they were getting frustrated. It doesn't make a good headline.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
It's like,
Jas going for the 155, whatever it is.
And I could tell they were getting frustrated by my answer. It doesn't make a good headline.
Sure.
They want to know that I'm thinking about a gold medal. I'm thinking about this result, this number. But the longer I lift for, the more I've adapted a more values-based approach to my goals and my purpose, rather than like a number or a result. And I think, like, for example, the Commonwealth Games trials was really important. I was very motivated, but it was almost arbitrary, because the reason I was so motivated and the reason the challenge, it meant so much to me, because the challenge was so great. So that result of winning the Commonwealth Games trial, it wasn't about, oh yes, I'm the number one ranked lifter now, oh yes, I'm going to qualify for the Commonwealth Games. It was more that this is a huge challenge, because I spent a lot of time in injury, and I only had 5 months to qualify for the Commonwealth Games. So that's what excited me. The goal was almost arbitrary. It was the challenge of how, can I do this in 5 months? Can I go from missing a year of injury to being the number one ranked weightlifter in 5 months in England? It was more like that challenge really excited me, and that's why the trials meant so much. So for me, it's always about the challenge of getting better. Goals I like them, so the result is almost arbitrary for me.
That's really interesting. I think it just brings into that context. Like I say, the injury you had, and then coming back from that, you have that time frame of working towards that goal, but just focusing on the micro, just getting focusing on yourself, getting a little bit better. It's brilliant. I think such a good mentality to have. And I think what you're doing is with your, I remember as I said when we spoke last time, in terms of the way you approach training and competition, I think you really focus on controlling the controllables, things that are within your grasp, you can control, the discipline to come to the session, the setting your targets of, those training targets, and kind of, I think we can all get lost in the bigger picture of, right, I'm going to go for that gold medal, we're going to win the league this season. It's like, there's a lot of variables there that, could come into play. And I think, almost those kind of goals could become a bit overwhelming as well. Yeah. Whereas if you're focusing on what can I control? What can I do each day to make myself a little bit better? Then I think just approach it.
100%. It reminds me of a good analogy that I had recently. It's almost like walking the tightrope, and then you're trying to get to the other side. Like if you're just thinking about getting to the other side and making it, you probably won't do well. But if you just focus on like making one good step at a time, you've probably got a better chance. I think that's how I focus at my training. So I've got that goal of getting to the end of like the metaphorical tightrope. But once I've established that goal, it's more about having one good day at a time.
Quality.
I think the interesting thing about that is I put like results second and I put character first. But I think I have better results than if I did it the other way around. If I put results first and if I put character second, I think I would have worse results. So it's like a paradoxical relationship.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's something that people can take in everyday life as well. Even outside of the sporting context, having these long-term goals. Whether it's work, whether it's like buying a house or a car or anything like that might seem a little bit out of reach at the moment. But just focusing on those little things, trying to make a relationship better, for example, of like, okay, we've got maybe that end goal of roughly what we'd like it to be, but let's pull it into the short term and let's try and have the discipline to do like the day-to-day things well. And then, it's a book I read by Bill Walsh, who's one of the greatest NFL coaches ever. And the book's called The Score Takes Care of Itself. And it's very much about just meticulous preparation of just doing what you can control as best as you possibly can. And like the analogy you've just used at the tightrope, just focusing on that one step at a time, to work towards the bigger picture. And then he's sort of saying if he prepares his team as best as he possibly can, then that result is going to, on the pitch, he's going to sit back and just watch his team because everything's been done in the prep. And it's for you, it's just, okay, it's different because it's an individual sport, but it's the same in a way as well, where you've done all the prep and training, and it's just a case of right, I'm just going to go out and just basically implement that, what I've done. That's interesting.
That approach works well is because you're foregrounding effort over results. So you're not what you want to be. You're not what you say you are. You are the things you do. So I think that the reason that approach works so well is because you're foregrounding action, and it's the accumulation of those actions that amount to the results. So I'm a big believer in setting the goals, but then focusing on the effort over the results, because the result is just an expression of the things you've done in training. So I think that's where your focus should be once you've set your goals.
I agree. Goal. It's good to have a rough kind of goal of where you want to be. People say to me, "Oh, where do you want the business to be in 3 years, 5 years time?" It's like, okay, I've got an idea. I've got a vague idea, but a lot can change in that time. But also whatever that goal is, it's that's kind of vague and it's in the back of my mind, and then it's actually what can we do quarterly to make that better, and then even shorter than that, what can we do week to week, day to day, what can we do today that's better than what we did yesterday. And I think if you're doing that and you're making yourself a little bit better each day, then the progress is inevitable, really. It's going to come, isn't it?
No matter how bad you want something, if you haven't put things in place, those building blocks, it's not going to happen. And one way I've incorporated that mentality into my training is through journaling. So it's one
oh right.
So I think that's a practical way to incorporate that mentality. So one prompt that I have is how can I win today? Or how can I be my gold medal self today? And I would list those things. I think the reason that's powerful is because like you said, you're controlling the controllables, and you're just focusing on getting the best out of yourself each day. And at the end of the day, it's just simple. Have I done the things I've said I was going to do? And then it really makes clear your effort, and it really makes clear your intentions and whether you're doing the things that you should be doing. I think that clarity of purpose and those clear actionable steps are really, really, really important. So rather than thinking, how do I win this conference? How do I win today? What are the things that I need to do? And then at the end of the day, have I done those things? And then maybe weekly, I would think about if I'm starting to tick those boxes, other things that I'm not doing that I could be adding on to that. So having those prompts has been really helpful for me, just to make sure I'm getting the most out of myself each day. Because if I discern these actionable steps, and at the end of the day I've done half of them, I can't be surprised when I don't get the result that I want. Like, your actions and your effort has to equate to the goals. I think using those prompts is a really good way to make that clear, and to make that transparent. Is your effort actually aligning to what you want to achieve? So that's something that's really helpful. And I think could work in a variety of contexts.
Are you doing that for like overall life, or was that just a training? Like, is that specifically training where you say, right, this is what I could have done better, I could have prepped, I could have planned my food better, or I could have done this or that, or is that like, do you think that is an overall self-development?
Overall, so not just training. So it could be like nutrition, sleep, lifestyle.
Because it all rolls back in, doesn't it? That's the thing. I think like it's I think I'm really interested in self-development. I've been trying to work on it for a few years, and I think the sport and the job and the home life and everything, although they're separate entities, it's like can help each other.
Yeah.
Like if your goals this year, obviously very, probably the big goal is the sporting goal. Is the Commonwealth Games, but it's like, right, if I can do things well at work, if I can sleep well, if I can, see the family, and make the effort with family and friends and better myself in those areas potentially and things like that. If you're happy outside, people say if you're happy outside the sport as well, that's going to roll into the sport, make things a lot easier. If you can better yourself at work, at home, discipline through your whole life, that can fit into the sport. Do you think?
Yeah, 100%. So what I alluded to at the start of this chat is that this block has been challenging, and things haven't just been falling into place and adapting, changing, and it was because of like the influence of external stresses and personal life stress and work stress, and balancing that. So I've had to fight for like the progress I've made. So those things are like so dependent on each other, and you can't just ignore that side of things. You've got to set goals and make sure you're doing doing actionable things to improve in those areas, to positively influence your sport as well.
Yeah, like a much lower level than what we're talking about, today sporting wise. If we ever have clients come down here and they've got a job which is maybe pretty stressful, it's a pretty high end job, and they want to get into training but they're struggling to find the consistency and things like that. It's amazing how many times over the years I've found that by getting them into the gym, into their exercise, and being consistent with it, and building the discipline in that to make it a part of their life, how much better they've told me they've got on at work as well. And also working with athletes, vice versa, like getting the home life sorted out a bit, getting the work sorted, good discipline and things like that. Like, you've got your guys who on a different end of the spectrum to what you're trying to achieve, but maybe they want to work out twice a week, and we've set them a goal to get 10,000 steps a day or 6,000 steps a day, and just by starting to get those things into their life, they're feeling a lot better, they're feeling a lot healthier. And although that's not a direct you might not think it's a direct correlation with like standards of work, for example, and business, like it is, like, because that person's a lot healthier, they're feeling better about themselves, they're more self-confident, and obviously that doesn't just switch off when you get into the workplace. That's now who you are and how you've developed, and then that comes into that side of things. So I think having that overall approach is really cool. The journey is an interesting one. It's something I know a few people are doing. And how long have you been sort of doing that? Is that every night then you sort of write a few notes?
Every morning I set those actionable steps. And sometimes they're exactly the same day today, but that's okay because not everything has to change. You
have to be.
And you shouldn't feel like you have to change things every day, because some results sometimes you're just doing the same thing consistently over again.
Which is a win. Your simple goal, but you've done that 5 days in a row. Like, the average person who might do 10,000 steps a day, that might just be the same goal for 5 days in a row, and if they complete 5 days back in a row, pretty much less than half of that.
Yeah,
that's a win, isn't it?
100%. And I think the reason the journaling works so well is because it's solution based rather than just problem based. So, for example, one issue that I was having. So I train 6 to 9. I get home at about 4:30. So to get to the gym, at 6, I can leave at 5:30. And one issue that I was having is I didn't want to go straight to work. So I would be late to gym a lot. It's a simple thing, but I was late to gym. I get at 7. I have to rush my session. I was sleep late, I had to knock on effect and work. So that was a problem. But I think just identifying problems and knowing that you need to improve it isn't always helpful. It's just the first step. I think what's important is to be more solution based, and journaling helped me with that. So, that was the problem. But what's my actionable step? So it goes back to that prompt of what would my gold medal self do? Like, what would my high self do in this situation? And for me, it was making sure I get to the gym on time, making sure I don't. Sometimes I would come from work and just have a nap because I was so tired. So it would just be eradicating that, making sure my work is finished in work. Whenever I have like a PPA time at work, making sure I use it properly so that when the day ends at work, I can just leave. So because I had those actionable steps discerned, I was able to develop a solution. I think that solution-based problem is so solution-based approach is really helpful. Rather than just beating yourself up over. So just knowing that I need to get the training earlier, but feeling like crap when I come back from work, and then forcing myself to do it. It could work, but it's very negative. So okay, what would my best self do in this situation? Okay, you would make sure you finish work at work. You wouldn't succumb to the temptation of a nap after work.
I'm laughing. I'll be guilty of.
Just real life stuff, So just that prompt would be helpful. What would your goal medal self do? Then you'll get your your goal medal results hopefully.
You don't want to be bringing that work into the gym with you. There's got to be that separation of right, as soon as I walk out that door, work's done. Now it's like a bit of time where maybe it's just prep,
exactly,
and then it's execution.
That clarity. But again, identifying those solutions. What would my best self do? How is he going to solve this problem? So it's not just about that's a problem I need to do earlier. You just need to discern those steps.
It's not really enough. It's not a solution. It's like, well, yes, it might say it's got a negative way of beating yourself up, but like, I should be coming earlier. Whereas actually, it's like, well, what?
Yeah, how am I going to do it?
How am I going to do that?
And I think that's why journaling is so helpful, because it forces yourself to be specific and it forces you to be solution based with the right prompts. I think that's the prompt to use.
The next morning, do you read back at those ones from last night that you wrote, and then you write the goals for the day?
Yeah, so normally at the end of the day,
so
at the end of the day, it's just have I done what I said I was going to do.
Okay, yeah, so you look at the AM
and then when you didn't, when you haven't ticked those boxes, you can't be surprised about the results that you got.
Yeah, you've got no one to blame.
I think that's why it's helpful, because it makes your effort really transparent, and it forces you to be really honest with yourself. Because sometimes you can be training hard, and I've been guilty of this, in the gym, but your behavior is outside the gym. Your lifestyle, those might not be in place, but this forces you to be really, really accountable.
I mean, that's. I think I went more in the morning, and it's. I'm a big believer of like you do get out what you put in. As cliche as that sounds, but I do think it's true, because you're gonna set those goals, whether that's like 3 tasks for the day or whether that's like if you have a successful event or competition or to open a business or whatever it is. and there's no doubt that it's not going to be perfect on the way. Like it's not going to be. There's going to be hiccups, there's going to be mistakes, and everything like that. But I am a believer that like if you keep putting the work in, and alongside that, not just putting the work in, but actually having the self-awareness to reflect, like you're saying on the journaling, where at the end of the day you're reflecting, and then you're coming up with the solutions, and then you're setting the goals. It's almost like that kind of three-way process. And I feel like as long as if you're doing that and you're working hard, like it will come. You know what I mean? It's like you know, because if I look at for example, like this business, like it's probably been built on and got to where it is now, like from mistake after mistake, which sounds terrible, but like it's literally just like making mistakes, but then having the self-awareness and I guess the kind of dignity and like humbleness to be like, right, like I messed that up. Like I could be doing, like you refer to, like what would your gold standard self do? And I, you know, would look and be like, right, okay, yeah, we could have done this a lot better today. I could have done that a lot better. And then it's having, yeah, I don't know if I was ever I've had the awareness to like write that down, correct it, but I was always had that mentality of like, yeah, let's try and, you know, put on that a little bit better. And I think like you make a mistake and then you throw your arms up in the air and just leave it, then it's never going to get better. Whereas if you make a mistake, then those are the best things to learn from and to move forward, as long as you've got the awareness to identify it and then come up with the solution to make it better.
I think that's just everyone as a human thing that you learn from your mistakes.
Yeah.
But it's not inherently true. Like it's how you react to that mistake.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, are you actually being introspective, and are you actually like drawing the lessons from it? So you know, then in that case, you know, it can provide you with like the roadmap better.
So obviously representing England, Commonwealth Games, major competition, Birmingham as well. It's just unbelievable for yourself, I'd imagine. Not your first time representing England, obviously, but how does it feel to represent your country? And like, do you still get the same buzz now as you did when you first came to England?
It feels very special, especially at this point in my career where I'm kind of in my, you know, I think then this point in the next maybe 4-5 years, I find that my prime years, to be able to get a home game for my prime years is really special. And for me, the most important thing when it comes to competing is competing with integrity and showing like my character. Because when I think about my favorite competition experiences, it's when I've had to show something, when I've had to like dig deep and show my character. So to be able to like have the opportunity to like showcase who I am at a home games, representing England, just makes it really special.
When you say that, is that 2019?
It was 2019.
It's 2019. Yeah. British. Yeah. I was like, everyone's asked me before, like they might be listening to this. Oh God, you're going on about it. Yeah. But like that was literally the best moment of live sport I've ever seen in my life. Like it was. I've been very fortunate, like growing up, you know, massive rugby fan, massive football fan, cricket, and you know, I've seen a lot of live sport, you know, over the years. But like in terms of seeing someone who like dig deep and like to the, you know, absolute like depths of the soul of like what is possible, that was insane. That was absolutely madness. Yeah, what I'm trying to remember the exact. Was it 148 that last clean?
Yeah, it was 130 to 148. Oh, yeah, God. I was 14.
Do you want to just quickly? I know you're not beating yourself up, but like just for a couple of minutes, just talk the guys through that, because I was telling Kitty about this the other day and it blew her mind. She couldn't quite believe it. So
I can't remember the specifics now.
I just remember being there. It was like it was insane. Yeah,
I was
incredible.
7 kilos behind after snatch. I was 7 kilos behind after snatch, and then I opened 130, and then my competitor in Karim Siraj is really good weight. he did 140. At this point, I was 14 kilos behind. So 7 on the stuff, 10 on clean jerk, and I knew I came there to win. That was I didn't come there to build a total. That was my goal for that competition. It was to win, and then it was that challenge. Again, it's an arbitrary challenge. It's not the victory. It's like the challenge. Like
it's not so much a gold medal.
It's what I have to show to do it. Like taking the 18 kilo jump, it's like what it shows in my character. So I was 10 kilos behind that snatch, 10 more kilos behind on clean jerk. I was 17 kilos behind at this point, and I opened 130, and at that point I was just waiting. So whenever he did a lift, I just put mine up, and it ended up at 148. At this point, my best clean jerk ever was 141. So it was a 7 kilo all-time personal best. And I hit it on my second. Didn't need my third title.
Second, wasn't it?
Yeah, I did. Because that's what I was. That's what I meant. I didn't care about anything else. I just wanted to win. So I did one lift, and I just waited. Whatever he did, I put up. So he opened 135, I think. And I put it up to 143. Then he did 140. So I did 148. So I was not interested in second attempt. So just whatever the number was, I was going to put it on. And that's what I told Josh. I was like, whatever I need, put it on. So I put it on for my second. Didn't need it.
I remember watching you. What was he doing? But mate, unbelievable. It's just outrageous performance.
It's a character, really.
A lot from
100%. But I also feel like in terms of character, being able to qualify for this games is really up there as well. So I spent a whole year battling injury, and then I had qualified for the games. So there was the British Championships. Was the first compulsory event. That was at the end of January, and I was able to start lifting with the bar again, like literally just the bar, and I could clean jerk 40 kilos. And from that day, I had to qualify for the British. I had 3 weeks. So I had 3 weeks to go from literally starting with the bar to qualify for the British. And to qualify for the British, I had to be ranked 8th in the country. As I did my little comp after 3 weeks of training, after a year of not being able to squat or clean, and it ranked me exactly 8th. So I was 8 out of 8 lifters. So I was great, and I qualified for the British. And at the British, so now the timeline is 3 months post-injury. So now it was about 3 months post-injury. And to qualify for the trials, I had to be ranked 3rd in England. And I was ranked, I came 4th of the British, 3rd out of the English lifters. So I was ranked 3rd out of 3. So again, that's great qualification for the trials. Yeah. And then 2 months later, so now I'm 5 months out of being able to lift to the bar. I had to be ranked clear goal now. I had to be ranked number 1 out of everyone, and I managed it right at the last post. Yeah.
That's good.
So that journey meant a lot to me. When I started it, a very difficult challenge. But for me, like the greater the challenge is, the more I can step up. And that reflected at the British Championships as well. But that's when I perform best, when the challenge is great. And I think qualifying for these games was the single hardest thing I've ever had to do. To do that in 5 months was very challenging, but it was a very exciting challenge.
Yeah.
And it comes back to that values-based mentality. The reason it excited me was because of the growth I knew I had to undergo. So to be the person that can qualify for a Commonwealth Games in 5 months of training, it excited me to be that person. So because I care about values and qualities more, that's the reason I'm so motivated, and I took it as such a positive challenge. If I was just a results-focused person, it would have caused a lot of anxiety. About 5 months qualifying for the games. I need to do this, I need to do that. But it wasn't about that. It was, can I dig this deep? Can I do something can I achieve this challenge? That's the most difficult challenge I've ever had to accomplish. And because my mindset is more values and quality focused, it was a very positive build-up. And I remember distinctly thinking before the trials, when my training block had finished, I was so proud of the position I've got myself into. I remember thinking that if it didn't go my way, you know, if I didn't qualify, if someone else beat me, which you can't control what someone else lifts, I'll be like really proud of like the person I've become through this journey. I think that's because of that mindset that I have, where the number one priority is who am I, and then the number two priority, which is still very important to me, is the result.
It's thinking of, you know, have I stood up to my values and principles, like my core values as a human being, focusing on those to become everything that you can be, the best version of yourself. And that is something like we can all control. Which I think that's a powerful message for people to get, you know, to hopefully get across to people. I think like in the gym, you know, you'll get people, and I think especially here as well, because there's a lot of strong people, and you can look at others and be sort of thinking, oh god, that's a bit scary. But like if you focus on what you can do and making yourself a little bit better, like that's all you can ask for.
Like what is the thing? I'm picking up a piece of metal and lifting it over my head. Like that's not who I am. It's the person I'm becoming through my sport. And the sport is arbitrary in a way. But if I had a button and I could press it to change that 200 kilograms, like I wouldn't do it, and I wouldn't even think twice about it. Because it's about who I am, and you become that person through the journey of trying to achieve that. In my opinion, that arbitrary goal of how much can I lift. It's not that important. Like
go back to 2019, like the challenge of stepping up to of doing what you said you were going to do. And taking it on was more important than the actual piece of gold.
Yeah, it didn't care to me, like respectfully, like I didn't care about winning. It didn't mean that much to me to win a British Championship. It was important, but for me, it was like who am I? And I knew that, like being the kind of person that can take that jump and come back from a 70-kilo deficit. Like that's who I want to be, and that's why it was so special to me. And it's the same with qualifying for this games. It's important, the Commonwealth Games, but representing England is great. But can I go from empty bars to being the number one ranked lifter in England in 5 months? And that meant so much more to me.
What a brilliant position to be in, though, where like you've already achieved, like the Commonwealth Games hasn't even started yet, and you've already achieved so much, and something that you can get so much out of. With that, such a difficult process of, I just found that really interesting how you were like, so right, if you were to look at that as like the bigger picture of I've got 5 months to become, like to go from empty bar to number one lifter, like it's a lot to take in, but just kind of like shortening those steps down. I think that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. So obviously home games, you've already alluded to it a little bit in terms of how special that is. Like to have your friends and family that are going to be there. I think half of MSC are going to be down there. I think there's a lot of people who've got tickets for it. We all backed you. We all took it down.
I appreciate it. Luke was reminding me. Every session. He's like, you better qualify. I'm going to sell you tickets.
That's it. We're all absolutely buzzing for it. Like, what does that mean to you in terms of like friends, family, home games? Like,
I don't know. Like what I said before, just to get to show who I am in that scenario, like means a lot to me. With people close to me, the gym, family, friends.
Not quite like romantic as Gold Coast, but like it's still nice, right?
Yeah, in a different way.
Yeah, exactly.
It's special.
No, it's definitely great as well. Okay, like I mean, I have my last question down as any sort of mental, because I think you're such a great competitor. Physically, yes, obviously, but mentally is where I've always found you very fascinating. Are there any tips for anyone who might be looking to compete in something, whether that's weightlifting, powerlifting, rugby, football, attempting a 1 rep max, anything like that. I'm aware we've probably covered an absolute shed load already. So is there anything else that sort of comes to mind really?
I think there's definitely some principles that people can incorporate in training to help them be good competitors, and something that I've always done, but because I've lifted for so long, I'm starting to see in other people the habits that create success, and habits that create good competitors, and habits that create poor competitors. Because I've been looking for so long, I've started to see that.
I think more awareness.
Yeah, exactly. And one of those principles is that you should never complain about anything. So, for example, in weightlifting, I've trained with a lot of people, and I've seen a lot of people train. And for example, like someone walks in front of you, you got a crappy bar, you don't have great traits, you're 2 or 3 on the platform. Like I've noticed the correlation, like the kind of people that I think, as a rule, as a principle, if you can get to the point where you don't complain about anything, you bite your tongue and you just get on with what you do, despite any interference or any challenge, that really cultivates a good competitor. And I see it in weightlifters, like people complaining about someone walking close to them, someone being in front of them,
walking in front of the camera.
So that's one really simple principle that I have, is just don't complain about anything. Like, bite your tongue. Like, if you're the kind of person that is bothered by that, if you get the kind of person that is bothered by someone walking in front of you, and if you get the kind of person that will never complain about that, like who's going to be the better competitor when it comes to performing in an environment that you can't control, where there are going to be external factors bothering you. So I think that's a really simple principle that I think anyone, no matter what sport or role has should start to incorporate. Just bite your tongue whenever you feel like it's obtaining by something.
I love that. I'm going to pass on to the rugby as well. They love to know.
Yeah.
But it could be about pitch conditions, or it could be about like the referee or anything like this. And it's like, you're absolutely right. It doesn't get you anywhere.
Yeah.
It doesn't get you anywhere.
If you can get yourself to the point where it doesn't matter, you're going to be a good performer. It's that simple.
Nothing can put you off.
Sometimes I seek the crap platform.
Really?
Sometimes I kick the smooth bar.
Yeah.
Like, just. In competition, you don't control
someone coughing before you're standing up.
Exactly. You don't control the situation, you don't control the scenario, you don't control the state of the bar. You get a new bar, but sometimes it might be smooth. Sometimes the platform might be uneven.
Yeah.
Some of the platform could be broken. And
in competition.
In competition, even like preparing for the worst is another principle. So that I think is really important. So one principle is don't complain. Another principle to be a performer is to prepare for the worst. So for example, I'm comfortable taking. I got into the habit of taking big jumps because I thought it was fun. Like and I just thought.
And anything jump. By the way, if anyone's listening, they don't understand what it is. Anything kilo jump isn't normal. It's not what you do.
I remember that's something I took on a challenge when I was younger. And there was one time where, like, 18 jump is big, but the reason I did it so well is because I prepared for the worst. In training, I want to set myself a target to clean jet my personal best with 3 attempts, just for the challenge. And I did bar. What did I do? I did bar, and then I did 70, 100, 140. So I just hit a personal best with a 40-kilogram jump. So it's not an accident that I can do this.
It wasn't so obvious.
In competition.
That day in 2019, where it's like, I can do this because I've done it. I've made myself uncomfortable before.
Exactly. So that's another important principle: is prepare for the worst.
Put yourself in those uncomfortable positions.
Exactly.
Where everything, the parameters aren't perfect, or jumping weight's not ideal, or you've got the right balance, or whatever it might be.
After that competition, what I realized is that I started getting comfortable taking big jumps. I was doing training a lot. I remember at one competition, I struggled in my clean jets because I had to take 3 attempts quite close to each other. Then after that, I started taking smaller jumps in training at the top end. because that's what I started to find uncomfortable. You know, doing 3 heavy clean jerks. Because if I take big jumps, I'm only doing 1 or 2 heavy clean jerks. But if I'm taking smaller jumps, I'm having to take 3, and I started to find that difficult because I got so comfortable doing that, and I just found it fun, to be honest. So one thing I started doing is just taking really small jumps in training. So you know, if I was to clean jerk 140, what I would normally do, to be honest, is 100, 120, 130, 140. That's like what I would comfortably do. But then I started to think, you know, what can catch me out in comp? What if I had to do 35, 38, 40? In my opinion, that's more, for me, that's more difficult than taking the bigger jumps. So I started doing that in training. So I think, you know, preparing for the worst, doing the things that, you know, you're not comfortable doing, that's another important principle to being a good competitor. Another example, I bombed out for the first time after 15 years of weightlifting in 2020, I think it was the England Championships. And there was there was supposed to be about 5 people lifting on the weight class. 3 people pulled out and there was 2. And then the first lifter, what happened? I think he bombed that in snatch. But then I was the only one left. And then so I had no time to warm up. I literally had, I did my last snatch and I had to go straight into my clean jerks. And then, but then that threw me. And for the first time in my 15 years of weightlifting, I bombed out. And then, so what I took from that was I started to put myself in that position in training. You know, having to snatch, having to clean jerk, you know, with no break. I'm giving myself only 10 minutes to, you know, reach my top end. So, you know, I think it's a really important principle to seek the things that make you uncomfortable, and then they're less likely to threaten you in competition.
Arguably, you made a mistake there.
Yeah.
Albeit,
very
rare circumstance. But you've corrected that by, you know, what's the solution? I'm going to train to make sure that if that ever happens again, I'm ready.
Yeah. I remember in training, I would just give myself 10 minutes just to get to my top end range. I put myself in that exact same position I was at that competition, and then, you know, I'd have to be successful with my clean jerks competitions.
A brilliant place to leave it, I think. Some top tips for people. And on behalf of everyone at MSC Performance, you know, we're all behind you, mate. We're all wishing you the absolute best for the Commonwealths. You've already achieved so much anyway, and it's just going to be great to see you on the dance floor doing your thing. And you know, we'll be there cheering you on. So,
I appreciate the support from you guys.
Mate, thanks very much, and cheers for the podcast. And no doubt we'll catch up again.
Always a pleasure.
Good man.
Thank you.